Sweet. Thanks, Viji. And I'm so happy to be part of this network so far because it is really, really great that we're continuing to do things and that all of the energy and the excitement from Coders for Sanders is kind of continuing, and Rapi was such a good catalyst for a lot of this networking that's happening. So I'm super excited to be talking to you all, and thanks for listening in. So I'm Anna. I'm located in Seattle, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about the team I'm working with now and our journey and what we're doing and why, and also just getting a little more involved in kind of what ways that volunteering has impacted. Like, we're just going to kind of look at what we've done in the realm of volunteering and how that lessons learned from that. So let me just start my presentation before I keep bumbling on. So I will share my screen. Social Voter Labs is the name of the group that we are now currently known as. So social crowd reach is a tool that we're currently most focused on. And just a little bit about our background. Our team formed from the Connect sort of website. So we all got the Bernie bug, and then we started getting more involved and started volunteering. And a lot of us worked on the Bernie Connect website. And then we went on to work on the Bernie Friend Finder, and we helped with the Feel the Burn events, and we, continue to work on other tools and have probably interacted with some of you in other networks and projects. So there's 6 of us at the moment. We are mostly developers. We all have a good amount of technical sort of skills that we've been using to empower this progressive wave of activity that's been happening. And when we got to the point where we did some of, we helped to build some of these tools, we wanted to keep going. And we're thinking about how do we organize ourselves in a way that we can keep going, we can keep pushing forward. So we knew that we wanted to keep empowering volunteers. That was one of the things that became really apparent. But we chose to be an LLC because we really wanted to have a lot of autonomy about what we were doing and how we did it. Also, we wanted to be able to really be responsive to the need of the users and not necessarily be dependent on a specific donation or a specific investor. So we chose to be an LLC because that had the most flexible organizational structure for us. And then we are using sociocracy in how we're run. So we're really utilizing some of the examples that come from the Netherlands and other organizations that have successfully utilized this model. But really, that's just kind of the background of our organization. What I really want to talk to you about is what we learned from both being volunteers and also building tools for volunteers. And really, the most important thing we learned as volunteers was that, if you really want to have an impact, you want to have a really personal interaction. So the person that you talk to is going to listen to you more than someone you don't know. And if you talk to someone in person, you're more likely to have an impact than if you talk to them on the phone. And if you have 2 very similar candidates, even just one email can make a really big difference in who somebody votes for. So when we became aware of that, because of doing a lot of research and working in the campaign world for a while as volunteers and thinking about these things, we realized that there's a little bit of a life cycle in how volunteering works. You become interested in something, maybe you read an article, and then maybe you tweet about it if you really start believing strongly in it. At some point you might join a group and look at the conversations that are happening, maybe get on Reddit. And then if we create tools that really lower the kind of difficulty of becoming engaged and let people kind of slowly become more involved as they're ready. What we are doing is we're kind of, as a whole, as a progressive group, we're making it as easy as possible to have the most meaningful interactions. So if a volunteer or a person engaged gets to a point where they're actually able to interact with the group of volunteers, building the Connect website, which was a volunteer-run website, it was really, really important to have a really clear goal and visibility into that goal. And then to have that transparency so that people that join your team can really understand what you're doing and how they can be involved and take ownership so that they can stay engaged. So that's when we thought, okay, well, we really do need to mobilize volunteers. That's a huge, huge place that has so much potential. And there aren't a whole lot of tools out there. And some of the tools that get built for campaigns, what happens is like the campaign will use the tool, but then it'll die with the campaign. Either people lose interest because that candidate is no longer an interesting topic, or maybe the tools won't be available to others because that campaign doesn't want their potential competitor or somebody they don't like to get a hold of those tools, or maybe they just run out of money, so there isn't a way to sustain them. So we realized quickly that we really need to be kind of a separate thing that is really just focusing on the actual issues and the actual volunteers who are going to be doing a lot of work outside of even the election cycle, while still enabling them to participate within the political process as well. So a lot of the technology that kind of lowers the cost of this kind of thing is not super well understood, and a lot of times, the traditional campaign process doesn't necessarily fully think about the full extent that social media can be utilized. And we really wanted to empower people beyond just TV and beyond just simple Twitter ads. We wanted to let people kind of talk to the people they knew and more easily and kind of collaborate on a given issue. So, so we built this tool, and it's still in alpha, but the goal is not to be a social network, but to actually utilize existing social networks so that people can find like-minded people more easily. So, there's like a way to find friends you like on Facebook, or maybe and talk to them about something, and encourage other people to talk to their friends about something. The upcoming tools are things like enabling more like Twitter functionality, where you can find people based on their kind of hashtags or something like that. So there's a certain amount of emphasis on social media. But then when we were doing this for Bernie in the face banking world, we found that very quickly we also needed to have a team of people working together, because there's a lot of work that goes into social media outreach, as many of you know. So you might need to collaborate. How do you create those images that you post online? How do you make those images meaningful? How do you get people's attention? How do you make a concerted effort to all be talking about the same thing at the same time to get the most impact? So there's a little bit of effort within the group that you need to kind of align yourself. And then there's a lot of need for having visibility into what other people are also doing. So having an easy way to see what other like-minded groups are doing is another part of how we're trying to design this platform, so that people can really connect to each other very quickly, no matter where they are in the country or in the world. So you can check out our tool. It's on live, but it's in alpha, and we are looking to build further features onto what we have now. So it's www.socialcrowdreach.com. And we have a plan to have improvements to kind of the Facebook tools and the chat functionality, and implement some of the things that we had before for Bernie, like the Facebook event invitation tools and Twitter tools. But we also really, really want to hear what the current kind of volunteer community and also activist community would find useful, because ultimately we want to be responsive to the needs of the user base. If you have any interest in this and you are like, yeah, that'd be cool, but I really need this feature, or like, what about this thing? Have you thought about that? We'd love to hear from you. You can actually even go on the site and then join our campaign and talk to us in the chat, or you can email us, or you can find us on Progressive Coders on Slack. I'm actually Turtle the Turtle, if you see me there. And then the other ways that we're like looking to collaborate with people is, technology is only as powerful as the community that is a part of it. So ultimately, we want people to share best practices and lessons learned and help each other learn how to mobilize, and learn how to like all row in the same direction from each other. So, we want to have as much of that insight available in the actual platform. So if you're somebody who's like really passionate about a cause, you can just go on there and get going really quickly because you have access to this network of people. And if there isn't a campaign that's already doing that, you can start your own and you can utilize some of these best practices to really be effective. Other ways that we want you to be involved with us is if you have a tool or you're building a tool and you're like, I really want as many volunteers and activists as possible to have access to this, we're happy to integrate. We're always looking for ways to collaborate, and we love pushing this whole effort forward by being really inclusive and really working together as much as possible. And then finally, if you are a coder and you really want to help us, we're also looking for new team members. So please feel free to join us. And I'm actually going to have Ollie talk a little bit about kind of the technology really quick to give you a sense of what we're doing and if that interests you as a coder.
Hey, everybody. My name is Ollie. I'm a front-end developer, or trying to be a full-stack developer to some extent. I'm originally from Bahrain, living in New York right now, kind of lived all over the place. My background is actually in advertising. I'm an art director by training, and kind of developed, just progressed into development and doing more front-end stuff. Really not just going through our own technology stack, I would kind of give you an insight into how we were designing or making these decisions. So leading a volunteer-driven effort, or if it's more so a corporate setup like ours, where it's more horizontal, you need to have people that you need to have your project flexible to kind of enable people to contribute in the best way possible. So the project has to be modular. The feature design has to kind of account for the fact that maybe people can't spend a lot of time on each individual feature. Each feature has to be manageable in a sense. You have to think about the flexibility of your stack overall. You have to think about the architecture in a sense. And then something that we learned kind of the hard way is that you have to test. You have to have automated tests. Don't leave that to the last step. Don't make that the last thing. It's really, really essential, especially when you have a lot of people contributing to the project. You don't want things kind of going through and breaking. So to that, our stack kind of starts with React, and we use Node and Express for a lot of our services in the backend. But really, our architecture is kind of microservices oriented. We have multiple services that talk to each other just to kind of allow autonomy for the developers to develop their own services at their own pace, in their own stack. So we have a Rails side to things, and then we have a Node side to things. But the important part is that you kind of establish best practices early on. So we're using kind of the most modular way you can build things. So React with ES6 components, and then we're using Atoms and Sass for the general styles, where you can kind of configure everything just through variables going through. And then the automation deployment is definitely important. That database kind of architecture, that's mostly kind of preference-based. But in the approach, you really have to kind of engage people with your soft skills. You have to have a way to kind of learn how to motivate and work with people. So some people respond to comments in the code where, hey, can you help me here? Some people would rather you write them a really detailed bug or ticket report, these kind of things. So you kind of have to be conscious of your other team members as you're working in a structure like this. So I'm going to hand it back to Rapi